your best and worst moments in bodybuilding?
I think best, probably that day in 2015 at the Scottish was that was a special day for me, just because it was unexpected. I was just going there to do a show. Like, I did not know what was going to happen, and it was just my family and my friends were there, and it was a great day. And I think, and although winning the British last year was like a massive goal for me and something that I obsessed over for a long time, I think that in terms of the biggest impact, 2015 had a bigger impact in the fact that I totally changed how I viewed my training, and probably changed my life in a lot of ways, because I started structuring my life around training and got rid of bad habits, and maybe wasn't going out and drinking as much at the weekend and these sort of things. Like, it probably changed my life structure in a bigger way. So I think 2015 was sort of special. And I think the worst experience was sort of the flip side of that. So that was the British finals in 2015. So the way the UKDFBA used to do it, their British finals were on the Saturday, and then it was an international show on the Sunday. And so I qualified for the Sunday show, and I remember sitting in the hotel on the Saturday night with my missus, and pictures of it was Dean Garrett. Pictures of Dean Garrett winning the lightweights had been posted on social media, and it was that point I knew I couldn't. I was just going to make the numbers the next day, like, and my missus was trying to sort of give me a bit of confidence, like, no, come on, you can do this sort of thing. But I seen that picture of him, and I just knew I was mentally beat before I even got to the competition that day. And that was a sort of, I remember on stage feeling quite like the stage should be a positive experience, and it was overwhelming. If that makes sense. Have you ever had an experience on stage where you're just overwhelmed, and your breathing goes, and then that affects your posing? And it was all just because mentally I went in with the wrong mindset of it, and it just wasn't as an enjoyable experience being on the stage that day, because I was naive, very naive to what I was doing. I was still very new to all of this, and turned out Dean Garrett wasn't even there. It was Matt Argo, but he was just as good. And yeah, so that was a wake up call for me, in the fact that there's different levels to this game. I think a lot of people would blow smoke up my arse in the run up to that, after the Caledonian, saying, "Oh, how fantastic you've done, and this, that, and the next thing, and you're going to do this, and you're going to do that." And I guess it sort of started to believe my own hype, I guess, and that just sort of 2015 British was a massive back down to earth, like, this is where you are in the pecking order of bodybuilding sort of thing.
But yeah. That then give you the fire then to go away and make the improvements then that you've obviously clearly made, and it's obviously evident, from last year that you actually smashed it.
Yeah, I think, if I remember correctly, this first couple of months coming off diet, because it was basically two separate diets in 2015, because the sort of the length of time between the shows, I think I was mentally just very drained, and not resentful to the sport, but I sort of was kind of like I'd been humbled, put it that way, in the sense of what this sport was about, and I realised that there was different levels to it, and realised like how hard you have to work. And ultimately, I think, and this is something I would say to any, especially young competitors, people who are still in their 20s, it's time. It comes back to it, like, I think your best years are going to be your late 30s, possibly even early 40s in this, and there's nothing you can do to substitute time and doing this over and over again until you get the physique that you want. And yeah, I think after a couple of months and getting back in and enjoying training again, it was a sort of like a refocus, right? Well, if they can look that way, then why can't I, sort of thing. and then you sort of, that's where you need to ask the right questions, both of other people and of yourself, in the sense of, I think people take the defeat, if that's what you want to call it, in two different ways. There's the people who will look internally and go, right, what is it that I need to do to rectify that, or to progress or move to the next level? And then there's those people who want to look externally, rather than sort of look at what they can do. They want to look at, well, the judges said that, or the lighting on my tan, or this, that, and the next time. Everybody's heard somebody come off stage, and that's probably one of, you can put it in room 1-on-1, is I should have placed, or guys in the audience said that I was better than. Be humble. You know what I mean? The person that you've stood on stage with has worked just as hard or harder than you, and you've just got to take it on the chin. It's a subjective sport. You put yourself up there to be judged. You can't have any qualms with how people judge you, because you've put yourself up there for that, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, but again, on the flip side to that, you can see what it then therefore means to a lot of people. I don't know if some people search for validation in a way from the placings or winning a trophy, but yeah, for me, first and foremost, you've got to enjoy what you're doing. If you don't enjoy competing and you're doing it for a trophy, then you are definitely. For me, you're definitely doing it for the wrong reasons if you're doing it.
Yeah, I think, don't get me wrong, that like prep's hard and all the rest of it, and it is nice to be rewarded with a first place or whatever it is, whatever it was you were aiming for, whether it was a placing, whether it was this, that, and next thing. Like, it isn't nice to hit those goals, but I think you've touched on this in previous podcasts. It's very important that you realise that is just one measure of where you've came from and where you're going, sort of thing. I remember after 2015 driving back up the road, and my missus saying to me, she said, listen, because I was quite down on I think people built up in my expectations about what was going to happen that year after the Caledonian, and she sort of said to me, that is just like, it's just people's opinions on your physique, and that's all it is. It's not a quantitative sort of, this is where you are type thing. It's just it's a qualitative opinion, and that's all it is, sort of thing.
Yeah,
so
I think the measure of a person sometimes can be, like you said, it's a difficult time to get from being not in condition to being stage ready, and actually stepping on stage is an achievement in itself, and being up there. And that's what people need to give themselves a pat on the back for, because there's a lot of times during a prep that you could just quite easily find an excuse just to stop and not do it. And I think that if you get into the stage, you say you're going to do something, you set out a plan and you do it and you achieve it, then fine. If you get a trophy, fabulous. If you don't be too disheartened. You just use it as motivation then to carry on and work harder to achieve what you want to achieve later on.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? We've touched on this quite a few times before, and if you can stand on stage at the end of it and sort of honestly say to yourself that I put everything into that, then like, what more can you do than that? You can't control who else is there. You can't control what the judges think. Like Ross says, you're placing yourself in a subjective sport to say, judge my physique, and you kind of have to accept that, don't you?
I think as well, it's in the sort of quiet moments after, in the weeks and the months after competing, is where you really need to, or I certainly find that you need to look at yourself and be appreciative of what has happened, rather than always looking for the external gratification of it. Because I think if you can be at one in your own head with what's happened and where you've placed, or this, that, and the next thing, and how you've progressed, and that, at the end of the day, I think the older you get, the more you just realise that that's really all that matters, and everything else is sort of material to that.
Yeah. And like you were talking about before, Ross, about it being you know, you were saying like it's never over. You know, at the end of the prep, there's not an end point, and that's it, isn't it? I think you can't really look at it as it's a continuous thing of a hobby that you enjoy. So I don't think you can really think of it as a set end point as such.
I think that for me, getting that sort of mindset or getting that idea in my head was one of the things that helped me the most, because when you start to think, right, I just need to get to that point, and then that's like, you just, sometimes it can be overwhelming thinking about the bigger picture and years and years and years of training and all the rest of it. And I get that people just want to look to that show day or that point there or whatever it is. But yeah, as soon as you I accepted this a long time ago, that I will not step out of a gym until my days are done. You know what I mean? Like, I know that I'm going to spend the rest of my life, while I physically can, training in a gym. And once you sort of just open up and accept that that's, and you're doing it for the right reasons, then I think that's the best thing. I think as well, when I got into this, all I ever wanted was, as that small, scrawny kid, was just to have muscles. Like, and I think that's quite a humbling thing as well. Like, maybe when I have a bad session or things, I'm not progressing the way that I'd hoped. If I could look at myself now with the boy that I was at 15, like, I've done more now than I ever thought I physically could, sort of thing. All I wanted to do was have big arms. That was all I ever wanted, you know what I mean? And sometimes you just need to put things into perspective, I guess, of where you're actually at.
Yeah, definitely. I think, like, I always think you always have to sort of bring yourself back to when you're having those days where you know, on prep, and you just have to think, well, like, why am I doing this? I'm choosing to do it. It's because it's a hobby, and I'm choosing to do it because I enjoy it.
A moment like that just this morning, walking in the pissing rain. So
yeah.
Getting pissed on, getting wet, and it's cold, and yeah, why am I doing it? But then, but yeah, no, you soon. Yeah. I'm actually reading a book by Ross Edgley. It's over there.
A swimmer guy.
The Art of Resilience.
Yes.
Literally from the first few pages. I can't recommend it enough already. I mean, I'm fortunate enough to know Ross personally, because we used to a gym I used to train at a few years ago in Stockport called Strength and Performance. It was actually it's not a bodybuilding gym, and it's not CrossFit. It's like somewhere in between. I can't describe it. It was a great gym, and I probably was my strongest whilst I was training there, and I was fortunate enough to train with Ross and see him in action. But if you do get a chance to read it, even just the first few pages, where he's obviously talking about the Great British Swim and your mind's ability to push you on or give up, and it's fabulous. And I just think about that now every time I'm out just doing my shitty 20-minute walk in the morning. It's a road soon. I'm not swimming around Great Britain, for God's sake.
I think as well, even like in the gym, one thing I'll always say to myself, especially, is usually squatting, like, and you get that just nervous sort of anticipation of what's about to happen. It's just sort of saying, like, it'll be another 7 days until you get to be in this position again, and you're going to sort of kick yourself for 7 days if you don't.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, it can be training, it can be anything. Like, when are you going to be in that position again? And don't, for want of a better word, don't shit the bed. You know what I mean? Just like, have sort of no regrets, I guess.
Well, that's it.
So, last question before we wrap things up, Ross. You obviously massively successful season, taking your WNBF Pro card last year. What would you do? Have you set yourself sort of goals for the future, or particularly during that show, were you watching the bantamweight pros? Like the Hawk. It was Brett Freeman, I believe, that won that. It was. Yeah. So where do you see yourself? When do you see yourself competing next? Does it have to be within a certain period of time to maintain your pro card?
I think, yeah, I think it has to be within 2 years. I think that's the sort of the written in the rule book or whatever. I think it has to be within 2 years, and it would have to be next year, I guess. We're at a sort of stage just now, sort of family-wise, where we're looking to hopefully start a young family and have kids. And it's I guess it's going back to what I said earlier. It's just juggling things at the right time and making sure that everything's correct and in order in my personal life to be able to give it the attention competing in the pros that it needs, I guess. I'm under no illusions that it's just that it's a different level now, and I think, like I said earlier, that this is never going to pay the bills or anything like that. It's a hobby and it's a passion, but deep down inside, I know now that I'm at that level, I've got that pro card, or however you want to put it, that I don't want to have any regrets when I finally do hang up the trunks, that, you know what, I wish I'd done a little bit more. Like, I know I'm a very fortunate position that I need to, although it's not my career, you know what I mean, I'm not, like, I need to give this the best go, because I don't want to hit whatever age it is and go, do you know what, I wish I'd just, for those couple of years, I'd done a little bit more, sort of thing. So it's sort of finding that balance. Looking at those boys at the Worlds, it was sort of just, I guess the big difference that I noticed and have noticed from pro lineups is there is just no weak points across the lineup. You're splitting hairs at this point. It is tough. That, you know what I mean, it's not a case of, right, we'll send X, Y, or Z to the back of the stage because they're out of the running for the majority. You know what I mean? It's just a different level, and you need to. Yeah, you need to be the full package to live at that level, I guess. Like,
yeah, well, I mean, in fairness to you, probably the other lightweights from last year, the standard in that category, you know, like, was just insane. I was looking back on some of the pictures, just at the rear doubles from everybody, and, you know, it's like you said, splitting hairs. You go in between, oh, this person's got that little bit more muscle, but this one's slightly more conditioned. This one's got a nice shape. This one's got a good tape. You know, you're looking at things, and I suppose it's from a judging point of view, I guess it's really what they, in the end, prefer to see from physique, which we can make the difference. But that last year's lightweight category that you were in, Christ Almighty, I think any one of those people could have done a job. In a heavier lineup.
Both federations, I think the lightweights were just. I would argue saying that the BNBF, the lightweights was probably the strongest, if not the most competitive. Certainly from what I've seen from pictures, it was an incredible lineup. Juniors as well, not far behind. But yeah, I think as well it depends. For me, weight categories now change going up to pro level, so it depends if they do a pro bantamweight, which I might make, I might not make. So the sort of the weights are different. So I guess it depends how much progress I make over the next wee while to see where I would be in, or would I be in against sort of your Brett Freemans. Or would it be in against your Damien Lees? And
I mean, like, from my point of view, and this is, and just to compliment you, I don't think it really matters there. It's not really going to matter too much about your body weight in particular, because the muscle on your frame, and how you hold it is tremendous. And I think that anyone even at a heavier category should even probably have to work just a little bit harder for you not to be, because I mean, even like you say, like the likes of Marcus Lee, who got his pro card last year, and he was pushing even for the overall, like to beat Sol, but obviously Sol was just that much bigger and what have you. So.
Yeah. I got a taste of that at my qualifier. The guy is incredible.
He nailed it last year. He really did. He nailed it. Again, it was one of those things where he's obviously tried things over the years and just continued to get better and better. And last year was just his year, wasn't it? And I think as he won things as he went along, his confidence just got better and better and better, and that always shows on stage as well. If you're confident, then you're going to shine. If you're shy and retiring and nervous, it's almost awkward to watch, I think, at times, for people, and you sort of get almost forgotten about because you don't look, and that again, that's just testament to practicing your posing, working on your own confidence and displaying it properly when you're on stage.
I think as well, I mean, I'm under no illusions. Like I certainly feel, especially after 2015, like I felt spoiled in a sense of the things that I've achieved in such a short space of time. Like I go back to the fact I've only done 2 years of competitive season, you know what I mean? So I do feel like I've been there's guys who do this for a lot longer than what I've done and try and push themselves probably a lot harder. So I know that I'm fortunate, and sort of certainly coming back last year, I felt like in my head it was kind of like I had a point to prove that I wasn't just a one-hit wonder. That was the sort of the mentality that I went in with. But like you're saying there, like there's just something that I love about these guys who just won't be denied, will just continually come back year after year after year and just until they crack it. Like that to me is, they deserve more sort of acclaim than somebody like myself, who I've not lived this life for as long as what they have. Like I look at guy Stuart McCulloch as somebody who I look up to specifically for his he just wouldn't be denied. He just came back year after year, and I think it's the same with Saul, and the same way with boys who are just relentless with this, and that scares me. That scares me, the mentality that these guys have, because that's the next level you need to have to just
And just quickly, we mentioned Saul there, who cleaned up at pretty much every federation this year, and Ben Lloyd as well, sort of cross competed. I mean, are your sights firmly set like on the WNBF routes, or would you ever consider competing elsewhere, sort of thing?
I think.
I know there's a lot of pressure, isn't there, when the standard is that high, competing at multiple pro shows in a year is potentially a lot of pressure and things. But
I think for me, it's a good talking point now. It sort of seems to get a lot of attention. I think personally, my point of view is because I feel certainly BNBF and UKDFBA, I feel as though both federations are super competitive just now, and I think that's more it's a big plus for natural bodybuilding in this country. I think that's the way that you've got to look at it, rather than a sort of federation versus federation. I think just the way
absolutely,
where we're at just now as a country is just phenomenal, and the athletes that we're producing, and I certainly see that in the depth of at world level. The teams that British teams are taking to the worlds is just next level again. But I think for me, it was never a case of doing one federation and not doing another. I think it just so happened the guys who I trained with in my gym at that point, because I didn't know anything about federation. I didn't even know there was a British finals and these things. You got to remember, I just wanted to do a show, and it just so happened that one of the guys, Andy Williams, that I'd looked up to for a long time when growing up, he'd done both, and he said to me to give the UKDFBA a go, and it wasn't a case of that I didn't want to do the BNBF. I just wanted to do a show, and then not winning the British at the UKDFBA, that was sort of I want to win that now. That's what I want to win, and I guess going away and maybe doing another federation. I hear this a lot from sort of you guys talking about, or people talking about doing other federations when you haven't won in your own sort of thing, and that was my sort of outlook in the opposite. I hadn't won in the UKDFBA and I wanted to. Having said that, George Kerr, who also trains in my gym, like he's Masters BNBF Scottish champion. I've lost count how many times he's been nagging away at me for years and years and years to go into the BNBF Scottish, and it just, I don't know how I would stand with the WNBF. I don't know whether there's rules saying that I cannot compete with her. I've not, to be honest, I've not looked into it enough. But I'm just happy to be in the sport and competing. I'm fortunate to be at a level that I'm at and can do what I can do. I think it gets talked a lot about this super show. I would love to see it. I would love to see the best come together and just get it on. Like I think I'd love to see that, and I think it would certainly be interesting. I mean, for me, like again, looking at the lightweights and the BNBF last year, that was like Marcus was incredible. So was Steve McDonald. Like it was a good year for lightweights, I guess.
Yeah.
If I had competed in the BNBF, I don't even know if I would have placed top 3. I guess you need to be there on the day to know. I don't know. It's
exactly. Yeah, sure.
It's a strange one.
Yeah. No. Awesome. Well, I think we're up to about 90 minutes, so I guess we can wrap up there. It's been a really good chat, Ross, and we thank you for joining us. And I think speak for everyone when we say we'll look forward to the next time you do step on that pro stage, because I'm sure you'll have continued to make improvements, and it'll be interesting to see, because I'm sure you'll be holding your own and pushing for those top spots. And
absolutely. Yeah. Can I just say before I go, I don't know if you remember this, but first time I met you, Tom, so you'd won the novice at the Scottish, is that right, at the BNBF?
Yeah.
And I remember seeing that, and this is going back to, I did not know like the levels involved to this sport. So in my mind, you'd won a show at a bodybuilding competition, you were like a massive deal. Not that you're not a massive deal, but I remember being like, and I think I'd seen on your social media, somebody had said, like, in the weeks coming up to the Caledonian, that somebody had said, oh, good luck at the UKDFB or whatever it was. I remember thinking, oh my God, Tom Poyner's going to be there. And I remember coming up to you after weigh-in and just being starstruck. Like, I remember talking to you, just sort of like being a bit of a bumbling fool, being like, oh, you're Tom Poyner, aren't you, sort of thing. You're really, really nice. But I was like, first time I met you, I was totally starstruck.
Made it.
Yeah. No, that's it. No, it was. But yeah, no, I think we had some good laughs, and like we've always said, made a lot of good mates. Throughout all the competitions, and any final words, Chris?
No, I think you covered it, mate. Yeah, thanks again for coming on. It's been great actually talking to you, Ross. I know you and I personally never met, or if we have, it's probably been in passing very quickly. But I'd look forward to seeing you back on stage again. And looking at the improvements that you'll definitely make. I've got absolutely no doubt in my mind, and will absolutely do really well and hold your own.
Thanks for having me on, guys. It's been a pleasure.
It's been great listening to you and chatting. I mean, the time has just gone really, really quickly, and I know that.
Has it?
We haven't managed to get around to even all the questions that we probably got sent in.
If any of them came from my mates, like this, just
there were a few, yeah.
Body questions in there, guaranteed, because none of them are bodybuilding fans, and they would have just been on the wind up. So just.
No, it's been great to chat. Obviously, great bodybuilder, but true gent as well. And I think you've passed on a lot of good wisdom to potentially sort of newer, younger competitors. And yeah, wish you all the best, and we'll speak soon.
Cheers. Thank you, guys.
All right. See ya.